How you doing, y'all? Welcome to Confidence. You know, I got some really good questions for you guys this week. A lot of stuff from the audience, and also a quick little special that I'm doing on this podcast. There's going to be a question that I have for you at the end, and specifically for my women. I'm going to attempt to answer it maybe in not a long time, but just like a quick 2 cents on the matter. But what I want to hear from you is what you would say to this question. And then on the next podcast after this, I'm going to present the question again. And then whatever you guys submit or your guys' thoughts or reflections, I'm going to share on the podcast. And hopefully we can help out some men, because it's a question from a man that is wondering when he should go back to a woman. But I'm going to give you that question at the end. I'm going to give you my little 2 cents. But before we get to that, we have a couple of audience questions. But I just want to start off with something, and this was an audience question, but I'm going to take it in a different way. So somebody asked me why men are in their sassy era. Why are men in their sassy era? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, are men really in their sassy era? I'm like, you know what it is? This is what I think is really happening. I think that the world and people, everyone's in their isolation era. Everybody's in their boundaries era. And I think it's both men and women. I don't think it's really just men. I think it's really both sides of the coin. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is I feel like connectivity and like true intimacy is much harder these days. And I don't know if I want to say it's much harder, but I just think that the way that information is being thrown on, like online, on TikTok, on everything, like a lot of people now are very educated on boundaries. Like when I throw out even the word boundaries, I almost feel weirdly corny even saying it, just because of how much it is literally said in our society, right? The things that you watch on dating, the things that you watch about love, it's all about, right, just like, how would I say it? Being really true to yourself, which, don't get me wrong, I'm all in on, right? I'm all in on showing up authentic and holding boundaries when you need to, and all that kind of thing. But what I realize, I think is happening like right now, and even for me, because it's like, it's for me too, but I feel like everybody is so self-focused nowadays that connection is really hard to find, like genuine connection. And a lot of it is because you don't want to put yourself in bad situations. And I think everybody's in like this protection mode, right? I think it's men and women. So when you ask me, why are men in their sassy era? I'm like, I think everybody's in their sassy era. I think everybody's in their era of like, I'm not going to fuck around with you, or I'm not going to give you my time unless, I feel like you're really filling up my cup. And it's weird because I'm all in on that. Like, I'm like, yeah, I agree. Like, cause I think about my life, right? Like, I'm like, fuck, like I really prioritize myself heavily. It's cause like, I think about myself growing up and like, just kind of like before social media, like as a kid. And I was just like, I feel like all the time that I would spend with my life was really outer focus, right? I was always like wanting to like spend time with my friends. I always wanted to go down the block and play sports and go outside, or even just like play video games with my friends and stuff like that. Like however you want to connect. I mean, it is what it is. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is it's like, I feel like now it's like, everybody is so rooted in what they're doing, in their work, in their responsibilities, that it's like making time for somebody else is fucking hard. It's like difficult. And it's like, I think here's where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, who takes responsibility for creating that connection? Because what I find is a lot of people, we have this fear that if we ask somebody to hang out and they say no, or if we make an attempt to make plans with somebody and they're busy, what do? Like, what is your first reaction right now? Let's just say you ask a friend to hang out and they don't want to follow up with you. What do? Do you hit that motherfucker up ever again? Like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all at this point in our lives where it's like, we literally give people like one chance. And if they're not like perfect on that chance, the likelihood of us following up and trying to make shit happen is gone. And it's really strange too, because here's the flip side of the coin. The flip side of the coin is we all are afraid to come off needy to everybody around us, that all we have ended up doing, in my opinion, is isolating ourselves from connection. Because everybody is so afraid to get rejected. Everybody's so afraid to be the person to make a plan with somebody, the plan not work out, and then them feeling disappointed. It's crazy. So there's like, I don't know, there's some like random girl that I've like, DM'd a couple times here and there. And I swear to God, I'm not joking. This is what I did. Last night, I was like, I told her I would FaceTime her at some point. And I was like, okay, she hasn't really responded back to me to that. I mean, we were talking a lot and I was the one who kind of like, I was really busy and I kind of like let the conversation trail off a few times. So I was like, you know what? Let me make the effort. But this is what I said to myself. I was like, I swear to God, I sat there. I was like, should I FaceTime this girl? And what I did was like, all right, let me take 5 deep breaths and see if I should FaceTime this girl. Because I was thinking in my mind, I was like, there's no way she's going to answer. I'm not joking. I thought that in my mind. I was like, it's kind of like late-ish, again, I've never actually talked to her on the phone before. And I was like, think about this. I haven't texted her all day. It's not like I was like hitting her up or something like that. So I was just randomly FaceTiming her out of the blue. And I was like, why is this decision to just like send some random person a FaceTime such a big deal? And I think because in a small way, right? It's like, you don't want to go through the disappointment of them not answering. So anyways, I take the 5 deep breaths, right? I go, right? I'm like, okay, you know what? My instinct told me, it was like, she's not going to answer, but I think you should just do it just to do it, right? Just to shoot your shot. And again, it's not like I'm like, it's not that deep. Like, I'm not shooting my shot. I can't see this. They're long distance. It would just be like a friendly conversation and just a get to know you type conversation. But that's what I'm trying to say is like, why is it so hard for me to even fucking do that? Anyways, I do end up FaceTiming her. I was like, what's the big deal? FaceTime her, rings, doesn't answer. And I was like, all right, I guess she'll call me back if she wants. I don't hear from her for the rest of the night. She texted me in the morning afterwards. But I guess this is, it's interesting because after I sent that FaceTime, then what happened? It was like, I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what I'm saying? What is this rejection? It's not really though. Yeah, and this is what I guess I'm trying to tell you is like, it really isn't that bad to like ask people to do things and to try to make plans with people. And this is what I'm realizing about connectivity in our day and age. It's like, no one wants to take the responsibility for trying and attempting to make that connection. And I guess that's the point of this question about men being in their sassy era. It's just like, I think a lot of men, they are afraid to put themselves in that position, right? They don't want to look weak. We don't want to be vulnerable. No one wants to be vulnerable though. It's both sides. And that's what I guess I'm trying to say. It's like, is that really vulnerable for me to like send a FaceTime to you and you not answer? In a weird way, it felt that way. That's what's crazy. But in when I look back at it, I'm like, I'm just calling somebody. If they don't answer, like, who fucking cares? And like, that's the same thing with like making plans with somebody. I'm like, the reason everybody is so starved for connection is because you are so reluctant to put yourself out there. You're so reluctant to try to make a plan with somebody just in case that they might not follow through or they might not answer. They might not want to do it. And I guess that like that feeling of disappointment of them not answering or them not following through is so strong that instead of actually shooting your shot, all everybody does is like, I don't chase, I attract. And that's why men are in their sassy era, right? Because men are in the same thing. Men are like, all right, I'm not chasing no one. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you try to make plans with somebody or do something and then they don't follow through, it's like you don't want to chase them anymore. My whole point is, I guess the pursuit is kind of gone, but I guess this is where it gets confusing because on the other side of the coin, if you over pursue, right? If you do too much, I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to a girl, right? And girls, I don't know if you guys even recognize that you do this, but you definitely do. Every single girl, right, when they're talking, at least to me, I'm a guy friend with a lot of different women. And I would say every single woman, every single time I hang out with him, always does this at least once. Every woman that I hang out with, when we're hanging out, they'll get like a random like message to be like, oh, this fucking guy. They're always like, oh, this fucking guy doesn't leave me alone. He's like, he hits me up on all these different platforms. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get that I don't care. He doesn't get that I just don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, does he not get the hint? And it's funny because you know what I realize is that the women that like, bitch about that, you end up answering them just like later. Or you know what I'm saying? You end up like answering him, be like, hey, I can't talk right now. You don't tell him to fuck off. You don't tell him directly no. You don't tell him, nah, I don't want to talk to you. Or like, hey, I'm really not interested. What you do is I guess when you're bored, you're just like, all right, I'll give you the answer or I'll give you some energy and that's what I'm saying. I guess that's where the catch-22 is, right? For men is that a lot of women use those men as validation. You know what I'm saying? Those men that are constantly hitting you up that you're never actually going to spend time with. And that's the thing is like, guys don't want to fall into that trap, right? It's like, I think everybody's like that now. It's crazy. That's what I'm trying to say. I think it's both sides. Both sides are like, I can't be the needy one. I can't be the one that shows energy and shows effort, because if I show energy and I show effort, then I'm going to look clingy. But how are you supposed to get connection in this world? And that's what I'm recognizing too. So I've been reading this book, and I guess I'll tell you the name because fuck it. The 7 Principles of, actually I forgot the name. The 7 Principles of like healthy marriage or something. I'm reading about marriage and I don't even have a girlfriend or not even a single option. I'm reading about the 7 Principles of fucking marriage. But in there, what I'm realizing is a lot of the principles are actually centered around mostly, and honestly, this chapter is really talking about how men have to let go of the ego a little bit, and not necessarily just the ego, but really letting go and almost like giving in to their woman a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like allowing yourself, allowing your woman a seat at the table and dropping down the need to feel in power. And I think that's for a lot of men right now too. It's like they don't want to feel less powerful. And I think this is why long-term connectivity is really, I don't know if it's in a crisis, but do you get what I'm saying? It's like neither side wants to give up the power. And even women, like, let's be honest, like think about what I'm just talking about with the validation and things like that. Like you don't want to be put in a position where you're chasing a man, quote unquote. But I'm like, yo, how many times have you asked the guy that you like to hang out, right? Like, honestly, all the women that I've actually ever dated in the last 4 or 5 years, generally, right? There's been a handful that have not. If I met a girl in person, I've been the one to shoot the shot, but every single girl that I've met online, they have shot the shot first. They've shot the shot first. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like, connectivity is possible for you, but I think what you need to do is relinquish this idea that you are needy or clingy if you try to be direct and make plans with people. Like, don't be afraid. Be like, hey, yo, I'm available on Saturday. Like, even to a friend, I feel like it feels weird in this day and age where it's like, yo, I'm around Friday night. Do you want to go get something to eat? I think, like, when was the last time you sent that message to somebody? Let's say an acquaintance that you've never met. That probably is foreign to you. You know what I'm saying? For most people, I think now. Because they're like, well, I don't want to just like say a plan of like a time that I want to hang out. And like, what if they just tell me no? Then I kind of feel like shit. Because that's what I think it is. It's right. It's like the resulting feeling of people not following through. It's like, oh, right? Everybody always wants to be on point. Everybody wants to have unlimited confidence. And they feel like if they take a risk and they ask somebody to do something, they're going to hurt their own confidence or hurt their own peace. But I guess that's what I'm trying to explain is if we don't actually start to relinquish some of that like power trip or power struggle around connecting with people and like giving people the benefit of the doubt. Like if somebody cancels on you, who cares? You know what I'm saying? If somebody doesn't answer the phone, all right, call them again next week. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to give people multiple chances, I guess is where I'm at right now. And I think we've really gotten away from that because our boundaries have just gone astronomically strong. But my whole point is then all you're doing is isolating yourself. And the other aspect of it too, I understand, right? We're all, you know what it is? I feel like we live in a world right now that is very competitive. You know, it's fucking hard. I think I talked about this on the last podcast. It's hard to be successful in this world. It really is. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta put a lot of time and energy into your shit. And I think we're at the point where, and at least for me personally, it's like, I really don't want to spend time with somebody where my energy is not being replenished. But that's the thing. I think the way that you view it needs to change. And I think something that has changed for me and shifted for me is this. You have to find value in just experiencing a connection. I think we've gotten way too much into everybody is like a means to an end for everybody. And I can't sit here and talk shit either because a lot of my life prior to like this last, like, honestly, the last like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I've been that selfish. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that I did was a means to an end. How can this help me with my podcast? How could this help me with my content? Right? Like if I'm hanging out with a friend, like if it's taking away from my work or the things that I'm doing, do I really want to do it again? No. Am I really hitting people up to hang out? No. I'm just doing me. I don't care about anybody else. But to me, that's such an empty existence. you know? It's like, my whole point is we got to bring back dependence. We got to bring back reliance on each other and dependence on each other. And I think that we are in a society right now that is being pushed so hard, right? It's like, it's almost like celebrated this independence that we have, right? That we need to not rely on other people for our happiness and all this stuff. And while that's true, it's like the other aspect is also true. Like, people are necessary for your happiness. Connection is necessary for your happiness. I don't care who you are. It is isolating and lonely when you are not making those moves. But here's the other thing too. It's not that you can't enjoy your time on your own. And I don't want you to distract yourself with people that aren't worth your time. And I think that's what some people get into, right? So some people hear that and they're like, okay, I want connection in my life, right? So what do? I need to start taking some risks. And I agree with that. But let me give you an example from this weekend for me. So, okay, this weekend comes for me, right? Now, obviously, I'm hustling. I got stuff to do on Friday. I got a lot of calls on Saturday. I take calls on Fridays and Saturdays because I know that people, work during the weekend, and having a weekend day is nice. So I generally, I'm not super available on the weekends, but, generally at night, I'll be around. So I think Friday night, I went to my friend's birthday dinner. That was really nice. Spent some time with connection. I was like, woo, this is great. You know what I'm saying? And again, just letting myself experience that moment with those people, not looking at my phone, not fucking worrying about work, not worrying about the next dollar, just really being present with those people. But anyway, Saturday comes, right? And I go through my day, and honestly, I finish my work at 4 or 5, right? I finished the gym as well. And to be honest, I was like, okay, I could use this time for connection. It's true. You know what I'm saying? I had this time off and I was like, ideally I want to use this for connection. And I was sitting there and I was like, all right, but what do I want to do? Who do I want to hit up? I just had hung out with my close group of friends the night before. So I knew a lot of them were busy the next day. So at that point, it's like, okay, as a single guy, I don't have, anybody that I'm talking to, literally none. I was like, okay, let me think about who I want to chill with. And honestly, it's crazy because it was not a lot of people that I really wanted to came up in my mind. And this is again, I don't think this is an issue, but, and I don't know if this is counter to everything I've just been saying, but the other thing is too, is I don't think that you should just force connection into your life either. Because in that moment, I was like, yo, I could just fucking hit up somebody that, let's say I spend some time with, but I didn't really feel that fulfilled around. But I was like, that feels way more empty than me being alone. So I decided that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hit anybody up, especially those connections that I'm like, they're just kind of whatever to me. And I'm just going to do me. I went and got a car wash. And it's funny because I ended up doing me. I went to this car wash and some fucking girl from my gym or some shit fucking parks in front of me. Random, she starts waving at me, and then I start having this hour conversation with this random girl I've never met in my entire life. And I guess I was open to connection in that point. But I guess my whole point is I don't want this to come off, and I don't want you to be like, okay, that means that connection, right? Or going after connection means that I need to distract myself with connections that aren't fulfilling for me. It's not that. Right? I really do believe that you should actually get comfortable with yourself and be on your own when there isn't people that you genuinely want to spend time with. But I think when opportunities do present themselves and there's opportunities to take risks, you got to do it. Again, that girl waving to me, I could have just fucking waved back and whatever. No, I walked up to her, had a full fucking conversation, created a new connection. Because here's the other thing too. If you hang out with the wrong connections, you really do not leave room for the right people to come in. I was having this conversation with my therapist and I was like, it's hard. I sometimes feel like I don't really have a lot of connectivity around me. And he was like, all right, but he's like, think about this. It's good that you're in this position because if you weren't in this position right now, you wouldn't be open to other connection. You wouldn't actually make room for the right thing to show up. Yes, it's uncomfortable to be lonely. Yes, it's uncomfortable to be in this position, but you're going to find something and find people that are in alignment with you. So I guess my point is this. It is still important to make sure that you're spending time with genuine people, but I think the other aspect is, and for a lot of people is, you got to take risks. you got to try. There are going to be people you hang out with that you realize, oh shit, I don't want to be around you very much. But if you don't actually drop the ego and try to like hit people up and try to make plans, even if they're being a little bit like, I don't know, nonchalant, right? You're never actually going to create great friendships and great connections. So it's a very troubling world. That's what I'm trying to say. With this new influence of boundaries, and again, it does make fucking sense that, you know, for some people, we don't actually, you know, we don't want to connect with them. That's okay. But this over isolation and this lack of risk taking and this lack of like, how would I say it? Like trust in ourselves to, you know what I mean? Handle the negativity of rejection. That to me is where a lot of us are getting stuck. That to me is the sassy era, right? We got to eliminate that. We got to be comfortable that, yo, we do need connection. I should take risks. I don't care if somebody views me in a shitty light, or I don't care if somebody tells me no. Because I know that if I don't actually shoot my shot and put myself out there and take risks with people, I'm going to have no connection, or I'm going to be stuck with the fucking connections I don't want to be around. Because that's a lack of risk taking too. Think about this. If I would have just hit up a different connection that I know didn't fulfill my cup or didn't fulfill my energy or didn't, like, you know what I'm saying? You know, when you hang out with somebody and you're like, yo, this is vibing. Like, I feel really good about this. I feel like energized by being around you. But if I were to just rely on the connections that aren't that because I'm fucking lonely, again, you're not taking the proper risks, and you're not actually creating a great connection circle around you because you're not trying new things. All right, let's get into the audience questions. First one, somebody asked me, they said, how to get out of the hookup girl box in a guy's mind. Now, so, okay, let's talk about how you even get there in the first place, right? Because I think that's really important to understand. How do you get to being the hookup girl versus like the wifey girl? And I'll say this. I think when most men meet a woman or they go on a date with a woman or they're talking to you, they do have an idea of what box you're going to be in pretty quickly, just to keep it real. I think it's half on the way that you present yourself, but, and I'm just going to be fucking dead honest with you because this is just the uncomfortable truth. Depending on how attractive you are, and I guess depending on your confidence and your energy, I think that, you know, a lot of those two things are probably 50-50 in terms of importance. Like immediately off the bat, you're going to be thrown into a category. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just going to be real. Let's say hypothetically, like for instance, I get girls that like DM me, right? To like, you know, I could tell that they're giving me energy or shooting their shot. How do I determine who's a hookup girl versus who's not? Again, first thing is attraction. Let's be honest. If I'm very attracted to you, I'm like, okay, you're going to potentially get this chance to be, I guess, wifey, right? And then from there, it goes to the next question is like, okay, what's her vibe, right? And also too, I will say this, time out. Part of attraction is not just your physical appearance. It's also your energy. And I'm just going to say this, and this is just for me personally, right? If I go on your Instagram and it's all bikini photos and it's just like raunchy and obnoxious, automatically in my mind, the only thing that I would put you in is the hookup girl. Honest. That's for me personally. Like because again, that's my standard of what I want, right? What I'm looking for, if I'm looking for a wifey, right? I do want somebody that to me is centered in themselves, right? Not necessarily like their whole shtick or their whole vibe is just them being hot. I'm good on that. I don't need that. You know what I'm saying? I want you to lead with your personality. I want somebody that's leading with their intelligence. I want somebody that's leading with those things. So immediately, if I see that you are not those things, or I'm getting that vibe very quickly that you're not those things, immediately you'll be put into the hookup box. So with that being said, right? Again, you pass that lever of like attractive and then I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see. But then it goes into conversation. The next box would be conversation, right? Do we have a good vibe? And then from there, we'd probably go on dates and I'd probably be able to see, okay, are we taking this to the next level? So let's say you're the hookup girl though, right? Again, the reason I wanted to talk about the beginning of that and why it's so important is if there are just things about you plain out that this guy just doesn't feel like you are wifey material for him, I don't know if you could really change that. You get what I'm saying? It'd be very hard to change my perception of you once I had that perception. You get what I'm saying? And I think that's what's, again, key about this question is this. To be honest, changing the vibe from hookup girl to wifey is not an easy feat, but it's also not impossible either. But a couple things need to be true. I guess what I'm trying to say. And the first thing is he does need to be attracted to you. And I guess if he's hooking up with you, you're in some ways he is, you know what I'm saying? Because I know that there's, for instance, there's girls where I'm like, oh, she's not that attractive, but maybe I'd hit. Just being real, right? Like there's some girls who are like, meh. You're like, nah, you know, you're not like, oh my God, gorgeous. And maybe I'm just like, nah, maybe I'll entertain it. So I guess if you're that, I feel like it'd be pretty hard to become the wifey if he's not very attracted to you and very attracted to your vibe. But again, if you're somebody that he's hooking up with consistently, right? I do believe you are past that lever of like, okay, he definitely finds you somewhat attractive. If he's doing it multiple times, that's my view. If a guy is sleeping with you multiple times, he finds you attractive enough to date. I guess that sounds crazy. Maybe that's not fully true. But my whole point is you have the engineering to be the date girl, right? Because at that point, the attraction has to be there. He's not doing that if that's not there. Now, the other side of the coin is this. There's a lot of people that are attractive, right? But then you get to know them and I don't know, maybe your personalities just aren't in alignment. Or what I do find for a lot of people is your boundaries are very poor. You're not very assertive. You're not very confident, right? So let's say you have a confident frame or you have a confident appearance, but actually the person that you are is not very confident. I want you to put it in the reverse, right? For a guy that you've probably only wanted to hook up with, but you know, to be honest, homie was just like dumb, or like maybe he was really like feminine. You ever met a guy that like he's super attractive, but he's acting like really like clingy, needy, and just like, ooh, you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, am I going to date this guy who can't take the lead, who isn't focused on his purpose? You get what I'm saying? It's the reverse though for guys, right? There are some girls that we meet that you're attractive, but you don't uphold your boundaries, but you don't actually like believe yourself to be confident or worthy of that. And that's a lot of the, you know, some of the women that I work with too. To me, what this question really is about is what is your self-belief about yourself? Because my whole thing is this, is if you're accepting hookup and you know you want more than hookup, then it's really about how you're viewing yourself. It's really not about how he's viewing you. You get what I'm saying? You're like, how do I change to be from the hookup girl to the wifey girl? And I'm like, change your view of yourself. If you're the wifey girl, how would you act? Would you just be giving yourself up like that? Would you just be hanging out with him knowing that there is no fucking strings attached if you knew that you deserved more? To me, it's about your energy that you show up with. And again, here's my honest advice. If you want the quickest way to change yourself from hookup girl to, you know, the wifey girl, first off, number one, start imploring some boundaries. Start speaking up for yourself about what you want and what you care about, and start going to work on yourself. Right? Become more self-confident, you know, work with somebody that can help you with that, or genuinely like work on your appearance, work on your energy. Yeah. We just talked about the two things that were relevant for me for wifey, right? Which was attraction and vibe energy, intellect, right? Passion, boundaries. There's a lot of areas within your life that you can work on that has nothing to do with this guy. And my whole point is you could just tell him to hit the heave ho, like get the fuck out of here, right? I'm not the hookup girl anymore. And what you do is you go and you work on yourself and you allow some time to go by, and you'd be really surprised about who is going to turn around and make you wifey now. Like you being the hookup girl, again, you could erase that. You erase that by holding up your boundaries, by believing you're worth more, and then by going and putting the work on that. You get what I'm saying? It's all about how you view yourself. And how you view yourself is how you treat yourself, both from a physical standpoint and an emotional and a mental standpoint. Because if you believe you're not the hookup girl, then go be the wifey. You know what I'm saying? And a wifey looks like what? Really good boundaries, trusts herself, strong in her femininity, believes that she can have somebody that could commit to her. working on her appearance. You know what I'm saying? Taking care of herself, eating the right foods because you love yourself. Those are the things that a wifey would do. So if you want to change the perspective, again, the perception's not going to change overnight. And that's what a lot of y'all want to do. It's because you want the instant satisfaction. You want the instant satisfaction of like one little lever that I could just press and all of a sudden he's going to view me differently. That's not how it works. To change that man's perception is going to take time. And to be honest, like I'll give you a situation, like one of my assistants, right? She used to hook up with this guy back in the past and she was the hookup girl, right? Because she had poor boundaries at the time. She was just like hanging out with guys and just banging them. That was her vibe. And then she kind of moves away from home. And this guy that she used to hook up with about a year ago, right? He came back into her life. And what happens is now that he moved back here, right? Or they're in the same location now. What does he do? He treats her like the hookup girl. Hey, it's 10 p.m. Yo, what you doing? Yo, where you at? And what does my assistant do? Now that she's worked on her boundaries and she trusts herself more, she's like, I'm not coming over there, bro. You know what I'm saying? I'm good on this. If you want to hang out with me, let's hang out, not at your house. Okay. The guy says, okay. What does he do? 2 days later, 11 p.m. Yo, what you doing? Because again, his perception of her is still as the hookup girl. You get what I'm saying? So in order for his perception to change, it's not going to happen just because you hold the boundary one time. It's going to happen when you set the boundary 10 times. And by that point, when you've set the boundary 10 times and he doesn't get it, and then he finally asks you to hang out to do something regular, at that time, your mind might change about wanting to hang out with him in the first place. But again, to me, it's all about yourself. It's all about your self-belief. And that's what, again, this whole podcast is centered around, just to be honest. This is really what it comes down to. Know that you deserve more and treat yourself that way. And when you treat yourself that way, you'll treat other people that way. And then eventually other people will treat you that way. But you got to believe that that is possible. It's really hard in that beginning phase when you are just a hookup girl to believe that there is something deeper when you have never gotten it. But that's all about faith. That's all about hard work. You know what I'm saying? So put the work in. You could change this shit around. I know you can, because again, I've helped 100,000 women before you do the exact same. That literally is what it comes down to. That's the Krabby Patty formula, just to keep it real. All right. 8 months into a friends with benefits situationship, how long should they last and how should I end it? So you said 8 months into a situationship, essentially friends with benefits, right? So how long should they last? Number one, I feel like 8 months is a fuck ton of time, but here's the thing. I don't even want to start, like, it seems obvious, right? So a lot of people would listen to this and be like, oh, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, 8 months, like, you know, does he want it or not? But here's the thing about relationships. If you're in a phase of your life where a situationship or a friends with benefits makes more sense for you, then I don't think that a time range really matters. I'll give you a different example to maybe set the stage. So I'm working with this coachee, right? And this was, I talked about it on a previous podcast, but anyways, she has these two guys that she's been dating. They both live about an hour away from her. So they don't get to hang out very often. Now, they've both been talking to her for about 3-4 months now. Now, for a lot of people, you'd probably be like, all right, like shit or get off the pot, right? It's been like 3 or 4 months. Like, are we in or are we out? But to be honest, they haven't had enough experience in person to really make that determination. So to be honest, she's actually in a better position by keeping both of them as potential candidates versus actually pursuing one or the other if she's not 100% certain on one or the other. So I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you is that, like, there isn't really an exact time range for when you should be dating somebody, right? Or when it should be official. I think it should be official when you are ready for it to be official. So if you know, but here's the flip side of the coin. If you know that you are ready for something real and that you see that with them and there's been enough time for you to get to know them, again, I don't think that you can make that determination in the first 2 months to just say, I'm going to date this person and only this person. And we've known each other for fucking 6 weeks. I feel like that's a good, healthy amount of time to go exclusive, but I don't know if that's the healthy amount of time to just say, yo, I guess it doesn't fucking matter. There's no such thing as like healthy versus unhealthy. If you want to go for it, fucking go for it. My whole point is this. I think if you know that you're ready to date somebody, and again, if you've been talking for 8 months, you know them. right? You have an idea of who they are. You know how they show up. You know their vibe. You probably know their values. If you know you want something real, that's it. You stop it right there. You know what I'm saying? Let's go. In or out. And this goes back to the hookup girl versus the wifey girl. You're viewing yourself as such. If you can't speak up and express to somebody that you want commitment, you don't deserve that commitment. You're too scared for that commitment. Because if you truly believe that you deserve that, you would express yourself. And here's the thing. The reverse is also true, which is this. You might feel that underneath that you want and deserve that commitment, but you might be scared to express that, right? Because of fear of abandonment, right? If I express to them that I want commitment, they might leave me. But there's your answer right there, is it not? And if you want to actually gain more confidence and become somebody that can get commitment, that's the pathway. My whole point is you either speak up and do it afraid, or you speak up and do it confident, knowing that you're going to get what you want eventually. So I think in this situation, you asked me, how do I end it? Because I guess, and again, when I read that question, I'm like, okay, cool. What you are really saying to me is, I do want something deeper. 8 months has been a long fucking time. Like, all right, let's go. How do I do this? So how would you communicate that to somebody? I mean, just literally, it's being direct and being really real and authentic. That's what it comes down to. Hey, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I really enjoy spending time with you. I actually really like you a lot. We hang out all the time. I have such a good time when I see you, but I'm at the stage in my life where I'm looking for something serious, and that's what I'm after. That's what I want. And if that's not going to be you, then that's okay. And just let me know, because I need to take my time to go find that then. I would love for it to be you, right? I would love for you to be that person. But if that's not you and you're not ready for that, you're not in that position, then just be real with me. But I'm being real with you that I do like you and I do want something serious. Put them on the spot. And here's the thing. What I find is with a lot of those situations, what is the guy going to do? We talked about the perception. He already perceives you as hookup girl. If you're 8 months in without commitment, why is he going to give you commitment like that? He doesn't believe you. I know that sounds weird, but the guy does not believe you when you first express that, because you've not been able to uphold that boundary the whole time. So he's going to treat you in the ways that he views you. And if you, again, have been the hookup girl, if you turn around and ask for commitment, don't expect that you're going to get that from him. Honest. Especially not right away. Because he doesn't believe you. Because you haven't shown him the ability to be disciplined to that. And that's where I find a lot of the people I work with, they falter, is they are just not disciplined to their boundaries. They're not actually disciplined. When they say that they want something, they don't actually do it. They don't actually stop that connection. And we just talked at the beginning of this podcast about how, you know, we should be a little bit better about being dependent on people and needing and relying on connection. But this is what I'm talking about connections that are not fulfilling your cup or not genuinely aligned with you. If you know that you want something deeper with that person, that's not a connection that's in alignment with you. That's a distraction from the connections that are meant to be in your life. You get what I'm saying? You hooking up with some dude just to hook up and you know you want something different, that person doesn't belong in your circle. That isn't a genuine connection. That is a waste of your time the more that you distract yourself with that connection. And again, I know it's hard being alone. But again, just like the decision I made on Saturday night, be alone. Get uncomfortable. Yes, it was uncomfortable at times. I was like, this is, I want to do something. I was like, you know what? But let me just do something for myself. And because I did something for myself, I was actually rewarded with a different connection. But you don't actually allow space for that new connection to come in if you are holding on to something like this. So to me, there's a double, a double positive outcome of you setting that boundary. Number one, you're showing him that you are different, that the perception needs to change or you're not going to be in their life. And the second thing is you leave yourself available to a connection that can actually treat you in the ways that you want to be treated. The transition period to that sucks. It's uncomfortable, but isn't it uncomfortable to go fuck a guy, go home and sleep at night wondering why he still isn't fully committing himself to you? Every single time you go home and you feel anxious that you aren't being actually valued in the ways that you want to be valued? Are they both not just as uncomfortable? And a lot of people make this choice thinking that they're in some sort of safety, but I'm like, you're in some pseudo safety. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like the connections that you're relying on are trash, just to keep it real. And then you wonder why you still feel so alone. It's because you won't sever the crappy connections in your life, start fresh, and start to build connections that are truly foundationally correct. And the only way to start those connections is we have to eliminate the fear of rejection. We have to be able to take risks to meet new people. And again, risks in general. It's a risk. It's very courageous for you to let go of somebody that doesn't value you. That's courageous. That's a risk. Because you're risking this crumb that you fucking have from this person for the hope that some person's going to come along and actually give you a fucking loaf. And someone's actually going to come along and give you their full self. But again, whether you believe that you could receive that or you don't, to me is just obvious in your relationships. People that have distracting, unfulfilling connections, I already know how they feel about themselves. They don't feel like they're enough. And the two people back to back right now, and most people in this world, let's be honest, we don't feel like we're enough. And so we accept that. We accept the crappy connections. We accept the 8-month bullshit. It's tough. It's tough. All right. Next one. Ooh, this was a good situation. I really liked this little sitch. So here it goes. He asked to be my boyfriend 3 months in. Met my parents and kids. So again, this to me sounds like a very nice green flag start. And suddenly he said he couldn't handle school, his kids, and having a girlfriend. So now he still calls me and texts me every day, but we rarely see each other. He says he has no money because of school and his kids, so he can't take me on dates anymore. So do I stick around for school to end in 3 more months to go for that? Oof. I really love this situation because there is a lot of nuance to connection. There is a lot of nuance to these situations sometimes. Sometimes it is black and white, right? To me, the 2 previous situations, easy. This one is more difficult because I do believe genuinely, and again, it's hard, right? We would have to, again, I'd love to explore more. This is why I like to talk to people in depth about it because there's probably a lot of details that I need to understand in order to really give you the best advice. But here's the thing, right? He turns around, he says he can't handle school and having a girlfriend and all these things that he's doing. He still talks to her all the time, but they don't really see each other that much, right? And again, he does, in a weird way, have a very valid reason, which is he's focused on school. He doesn't have a lot of money. He might not be in the position of his life to really have something real. But what's interesting is that he did take it those 3 months where he was giving you all that energy. And I think this is what some men kind of like fall into sometimes is like, again, they want that connection. And we talked about this, right? We do want that connection, both sides, men and women, right? But men too. We want that connection. So he takes you on all these dates. He's doing these things for you. He's showing up as his best version of himself. That's what everybody does in the first 3 months. And then the truth comes out. The truth comes out that like, he's like, oh shit, like I am actually very stressed with work. Or with school. I don't really have a lot of money to be spending on this. And I recognize now that I'm in it, that maybe this isn't the right situation for me. So here's my advice on this, because I think this is really a tricky situation because again, black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking in this situation doesn't do us any good, right? You can't just be like, all right, fucking screw him then, right? Because to me, he is putting in some effort on the phone calls and the texts, and he is staying connected to you. And I would assume that if you're asking me this, it does, like, again, the details that I would want to know is like, is he really showing up in a way where you still feel like, there is that great connection and he does really want the relationship? Does it feel very genuine in the ways that he's telling you? Because to be honest, if you have no money and you're fucking running around in school and you have kids, I feel like it really does limit the amount of time that you have for connection in your life. Like that is probably a very, very real thing. I can't imagine this is coming from some place of BS is really what I'm trying to tell you. Now, here's how to me, I would handle this in a way that works for you, right? And this is something that I would do with like coaches too. It's like, how do we create boundaries around this specific situation that feel good for you, but don't make you feel like you're missing out on an opportunity, right? So for some people, again, it's easy to turn around and be like, oh, fuck him, like, get rid of him. So here's what I would do if I'm you, right? You said, do I wait the 3 months? Now, I think at this juncture, if he's turning around and telling you that he doesn't really want to have a girlfriend, at this point, I don't think there is that commitment, right? He's turning around and he's saying that, and it's real. He can't give you that time. He is calling you all the time and things like that. But the truth of the matter is this, is like, you're at this point where you are free. And what I mean by that is, I think it's important in your position right now that you still stay open to other connection. Now, it doesn't mean you need to go actively date, but I would turn around and say, why don't you let yourself passively date? So there's nothing wrong with continuing to talk to him. Again, also, I would also have a boundary about how much you're really doing it if it makes you feel unfulfilled. You get what I'm saying? Right? You have to have good boundaries with your time and your energy, right? Like the things that you're prioritizing, my whole point is, need to come at the forefront. So whatever it is, your work, your kids, your school, all that stuff needs to take priority in this situation because he's doing the same thing for him, right? If he's making that priority, then you need to treat the situation in the same way. It doesn't mean he needs to go away forever. And again, this is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't need to be a black and white thing of like, okay, I need to wait for him for 3 months. Why don't you just say to yourself, okay, he's texting and calling me. We might hang out every once in a while, but let me leave him in that box, right? Let me put him in a box that says, all right, this connection might work out later, but for right now, I need to compartmentalize it and put it somewhere for right now. We could talk, we could, whatever, we'll text. But for right now, I'm going to live my life as if I am single. And not, and again, in an aggressive ass way, but just in like I'm going to prioritize the things that are important to me, right? Take on your hobbies, take on your work, hang out with your kids. And if some other connection hits you up or somebody wants to hang out with you and spend that time with you, I think you should give them the time of the day just to keep it real. Because here's the other thing. What if you're more in alignment with this other mystery option? But here's the flip side of the coin. Maybe you leave yourself open to that. You go on a couple lunch dates, or maybe you don't really see anybody. You don't meet anybody of interest during that time. Now the 3 months go by and you kind of see where his effort is at. And at the same time, it didn't feel like you wasted your time because you didn't put all of your eggs in this basket. And I guess that's really the advice to this is don't put all your eggs in this basket. If he's prioritizing himself in that way, then you need to do the same. So, and again, you have to be careful and cautious about, to me, it's all about how do you feel as well. Are you feeling anxious because he's talking to you all the time? Or are you feeling in control and are you feeling okay? We can't control him. We can't control what he's doing, but we have to probably understand that he truly is that busy. So let him go be that busy. But for you, that has nothing to do with you, right? Do the things that you care about. But again, it's not a whole black and white thing where you have to like make a decision. There's no decision that needs to be made. And honestly, I'm just keep it real. 3 months is not a super, super long time. It's 12 weeks. It's going to go by quicker than you think. But here's the other thing too. He gave you no guarantee that he's going to date you after that. So that's the reason I would say don't commit yourself to this person. You get what I'm saying? I don't want you to be in the mindset of, oh, well, I'll just wait. Nah. No. You're not waiting. Don't wait. No. Live your life. Do the things that are important to you. Be open to other connections. And if it's meant to be, 3 months will go by. Maybe he'll get his shit together and he'll want to re-engage. But I guarantee you, he will want to re-engage with you more if you hold that boundary and you don't sit around and wait. You're not a dog. You know what I'm saying? You don't just stay at home in the house. Live your life. Because that's what I'm trying to tell you is like, if you want it to work out more, you know what I'm saying? If you just sat around and did nothing and just waited for him, it's almost just like you aren't expressing and showing your value to yourself and also to him. You have to respect your desires. You know that you want a great commitment. Don't shut yourself off from the rest of the world because some dude isn't ready. You can't wait. You're not on somebody else's timeline. And again, it's not like you can't just hang out with him afterwards. You get what I'm saying? If he truly cares about you, he'll come and get you. He'll come and make sure to lock it down. But again, what incentive does he have to lock it down if you're sitting there waiting for him when you don't have the commitment? And this is kind of like the previous two situations. It's all how you're viewing yourself. It's all how you're viewing your own energy. if you prioritize your energy and you know it's important, give it to people that are giving back to your energy. If the phone calls feel really good, take the phone calls. You know what I'm saying? Keep texting. If it feels good to have those conversations and connectivity, great. But don't shut off other things. Don't shut off the other areas of your life. There's no reason to not be able to give him some time. But you're not a bad person for going on a date with somebody else when somebody is not, they don't have enough time for you. You're not a bad person. Don't hold on to that unnecessary guilt. And a lot of us do that, right? Especially my women, because like you're very hopeful that it can turn into something, but let it be that. You know what I'm saying? If it's meant to be that, let it be that then. That is truly detachment, right? That's truly letting go. Is being able to say, okay, if it's meant to be, then great. I'll see you on the end there. Good luck with school. And yeah, we could talk in between. How you doing? How's everything? I love talking to you. Yeah, let's have fun with this. But then when I'm at my free time, I'm not relying on you for that. I'm not relying on you and saying, okay, this is it for me. You can't do that to yourself. All right. Last question. And this is what I was saying. It's the audience question. It's something I want to ask y'all, right? Because somebody asked me this, right? It was a guy. And he said, I've let go of control. How do you know when to move or to make a move back on a woman? And I read that question. I was like, this is really a better question for the girls. So if you're a woman listening to this, I want you to like DM me, send me a comment. I don't care. Send me a pigeon, whatever you need to do. Ideally a DM, just whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And I want you to tell me, when is it the right time for a guy to try to come back into your life, right? And here's the thing. I would assume that a lot of the women listening to this would probably think in their head, maybe some, this is what I'm going to assume some of the answers are going to be, that, you know, when the time has passed, the time has passed. Maybe there is no time again for that relationship to come back. But I do believe, honestly, I genuinely believe you can repair a relationship. I think it does take a good amount of time, right? I truly believe you don't actually fully change with that person in your life. If it's only a few weeks, like there's a little bit of change, but it's not enough. I was just coming out of this situation too, right? I'm still learning. You know what I'm saying? There's still things that I'm realizing about myself and the ways that I show up in relationships. And we're like almost like a month and a half, 2 months out. Do I think I am much different now? Yeah. Do I think I could show up way different? Definitely. But also at the same time too, you need to give that person their time and their space to figure their things out. I don't think there's an exact set time for when you should go back to somebody. I do believe it's possible for connection to be repaired. And maybe, you know, at least for me, I really think maybe you just got to wait for that person to become available and ready again, to keep it real. And it's hard to know when that is. And again, maybe you could shoot a text at some point later in life, but you need to take your time. And again, I'm interested to hear the women on if they, number one, would allow a guy to come back in, but also like, what would you need to see from him in order for that to happen? And how much time would need to go by for you to even consider taking some guy back? And here's the thing though. I am a big believer that people do grow and they do learn, but I also am, you know, just to be honest, I really feel like anybody that's made you learn the lesson, it's very difficult to change their perception about you. We've just talked about perception and how difficult it is to change. Trust me, you know, for a guy's perception to be changed is hard, but bro, when a woman is done with you, to change her perception that you are a great candidate again, it's like nearly impossible. Just to keep it real. It's fucking hard. But I don't think it's impossible. But the way that you approach it, I think, is very important as well, right? You have to show a different level of maturity. You have to show up different in that relationship in a way you never have before. So again, my women listening to this, please respond back to me. Give us the details. And on the next podcast, I'm going to share some of your answers and we'll talk about potentially repairing connections that have gone away. All right. That's my podcast. I love you all. If you ever want to work with me, you know where to find me. Sign up for the newsletter, take the dating quiz. You guys are amazing. I love you. And I'm going to New York this week. Well, I would be there right now when this podcast drops. So very interesting. All right. So we'll give you an update on that as well. All right. I'll talk to you very soon.